Hi, this is Steve Horvath coming to you from the Oaks Outdoor Show here. And we're talking with Gene, the fishing machine Ellison. Now, I like to fish, but I'm not a fishing machine. How did you come about? How did you become the fishing machine?
Well, I've been an athlete my whole life, Steve, and athletes always have nicknames. They're never really called by their real name, and I think it came from part of my personality. I like to dance and stuff like that. Do you remember Gene, the dancing machine
Oh,
from
yeah.
the Gong Show? So I'm Gene, the fishing machine. I think it's just I fish so much that over the years I've been known as the machine. I'm one of those guys that when I get on the water, I work real hard, machine-like type guy.
Okay.
And, so I think that's where it came from.
Let's talk about some of that on the water stuff.
Great.
What do you like to fish? What's your favorite bait, favorite pattern that you could really fall back on and say, I'm the machine on this one?
All right. Well, the way I like to answer that question is I like to throw lures that the fish want to eat today. So
Okay.
Versatility is so important in bass fishing.
Okay.
My chances of winning a tournament are going to be much better if the fish are deeper. So if we get bad conditions, cold water, and the fish are deeper, I'm very good with electronics. I'm with Humminbird, and I do a lot of speaking for them, and I love their electronics. They're super, and I spend a lot of time reading through my Navionics mapping chips and stuff like that.
Right.
So I'm the kind of guy that, even in the early part of the season, we all know what the fish are doing early part of the season. If they're not on the beds, they're getting ready to go up on the bed. So they're on the first deep drop-off. I'll be the kind of guy that will be fishing that deeper edge early in the season. Yeah, and then as the season goes on, I'll be out on deep structure. So
okay, so in the spring, you're actually waiting for them to put on the Barry White album.
Yeah.
Before they hit the shallow stuff, you're going to catch them staging, and you're probably going to throw a deep crankbait or a Carolina rig.
Absolutely right. And my good friend Timmy Horton. Timmy's got a newer crankbait out. It's been out for 2 or 3 years now called the Switchback crankbait. It's made by Bomber, one of Timmy's sponsors. That is a deadly, deadly weapon, Steve. I'll tell you why it's different. It's different in that it has a rolling action as opposed to a rattling type of, so it doesn't give off as much of a vibration, so it can sneak up on a fish. It's got a stealthy kind of rolling approach to it. The other thing is that bait has an inner chamber, so it rattles and you can turn the rattle off. And that bait is a deadly, deadly bait out on those drop-off edges 10 to 12, 14 feet. You can also fish that bait a little bit deeper as well, but if I'm not catching fish, I'd prefer to throw a crankbait all day. Crank and wind.
Okay, now there's another thing about that switchback shad that Tim told me the secret about.
He did.
It catches them 2 at a time sometimes.
Oh, my gosh. I've never caught doubles on the same crankbait on the same retrieve. Tim's not only done that dozens of times, he did it 2 years ago, the first day of the Bass Masters Classic, on television with a camera boat in his boat.
What he told me is he normally catches them 2 at a time, but not to embarrass people. He shakes them off, is what I hear.
He's putting you on a little bit there, but Timmy Horton is one of the top anglers in the world,
right?
And there's no question. And he's a dangerous angler when the fish are in that in between.
Right.
When those fish are deeper than 6 or 8, and they're out there, he's a dangerous angler. He understands deep water. He understands the migration patterns of fish. Timmy's the kind of guy who's going to show up at an event, and he's going to start by trying to find a school.
Right.
So that if he finds that school, it's over in 20 minutes.
Right.
Professional bass fishermen, what makes professional bass fishermen different than really good Federation amateurs is that professional bass fishermen become experts on catching solo straggler fish.
Right.
And so I was talking to Zell Rowland. He was here at the show, as you know, Steve, and Zell's fished 300 professional events in his career, remarkable. Zell was telling me maybe a handful of times where a tournament's been won by a pro event in deeper than 10 feet of water. So professional bass fishermen are different. They become experts on how to find those shallow straggler fish that are all by themselves, and that's really what sets them apart.
Sure, and a lot of that, and I prefer to call it almost in between water. Not deep, not shallow, but a lot of that deals with finding little isolated pieces of cover, and your electronics does that for you.
You're absolutely right. In fact, professional anglers are actually studying. They're using tools like Navionics Hot Maps Explorer. It's a DVD for $20. It's got 12,000 lake maps on it. So a guy like me can pop that DVD in a computer at home, and I can study Gunnersville. I can study Toledo Bend. I can study Champlain. I can study all these great lakes all over the country. And I can begin, if I know I'm going to fish a spawning tournament, I'm going to look at the northwest quadrant of that lake because that's going to warm up faster. If I'm going to fish a summer event and it's going to be on Toledo Bend in Texas, well, what's a guy from Boston know about Toledo Bend? Plus, when I compete, I'm going to be competing against the top anglers in the world and guys like Ben Matsubu and Tommy Martin that live on that lake.
Absolutely.
The only way, Steve, I can be competitive is to study that map, know that it's summertime, and I got to say, I got to find main lake spots with the right structure, deep water next to shallow water, mark those on my computer at home, put them on an SD card, drive 3,000 miles to Toledo Bend, back into that lake, and then go to those waypoints. It's remarkable how well that DVD works. That's that same story 3 years ago at an event on Toledo Bend. I'd never fished this deep. So I'm going all the way there, but I've got 356 waypoints. I've never fished the lake in my life. What I did was I picked a hotel that was next to a boat ramp in an area that was where the majority of my waypoints that I had mapped out. So I'm saying I'm going to fish this part of the lake. I also had studied internet stories to tell me that was a very effective part of the lake to be in. You can't be winning tournaments if you're not around the big fish.
Right. What's that down around like the Black Forest area or whatever that is?
I'm not sure. It's out in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
I mean, there's nothing else around it. And the point is, it's 185 miles long. So how
Right.
can a guy from Boston learn that lake in 2.5 days? You can't.
Right.
So the first 12 spots I stopped.
Mm-hmm.
I studied those areas by going over it with my nitro and using my Humminbird electronics.
Right.
And I said, I'm going to fish this. First 12 spots I've fished, I was on 4-pound plus bass on each of those spots.
Right.
And that was an event Timmy Horton was at, and Timmy was rooming right across the way from me. He was the only one. He knew. I guess I kind of gave it away. I was being so quiet because they weren't catching them good during practice, and I was on them. And he came up to me one night at dinner. He goes, "You're on them, kid, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "How big?" I said, "I'm on 4s and 5s." He said, "Wow." He says, "No one's catching them." Timmy did real well in that tournament. The weather changed, as it always does.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Timmy finished 3rd, 4th, 5th in that event, had a great event. I was 17th after day one, fell a little bit from there, but always learning.
Sure.
Always learning, Steve. One thing we don't realize in the Northeast, we get bad weather coming in. We like to have a backup plan, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So we like to find coves. We like to find creek arms where we can be protected.
Right.
There's no protection in Texas, man.
No, it's wide open. You're fishing in the ocean.
You're
basically.
absolutely right. And so you got no mountains down there. So I'm thinking I'm fishing these 3-4 creek arms. We got 40-mile-an-hour winds. I'm going to be safe? No. But I could not really fish those spots very well. And again, it's just trying to learn lessons as we go along. So
right.
This is a great show we're at here, Steve. ASA does a fantastic job.
They always have a nice show. Attendance is always good. And, you know, the vendors here, you could buy just about anything you want to buy in the way of outdoor stuff. Now, for me, an outdoor show means pickles.
Yep.
Jerky.
Yep.
And all that other stuff.